Fitzgerald.
Finally. Oh my
Ah, she's here.
Oh my goodness.
Hi. Yay, we're
Hello.
so glad. We actually have a couple of our ambassadors are here with us, so I think that's always fun and exciting.
Sweet. Now my earphones aren't working though.
Oh, well, I can hear you okay.
Okay. Okay, perfect. That
Yeah,
works.
yeah. So it's always if it's
Hello. Hello
hi,
everybody. I see some
Clarissa.
familiar faces in there too. Hey Clarissa. And oh my goodness.
Quality Spud. I just love it. Take it in.
I
Feel the
know.
love. Feel the love. Well,
She's
since
all
it's
the ambassadors' number one fans, Equality Spud.
oh, I love that.
Miss you on my Saturday morning classes with your doggy.
We just want to say that this Saturday she's teaching. So if y'all don't know, you got to show up and take the class. Mwah, Clarissa.
Yeah, yeah.
So I
How
want to
fun.
just, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Leslie Collins. She is a Warrior Ambassador with Cura Grace, and we're so excited that she's here to talk to us today. Um, Welcome,
Thank
and I'm
you.
I'm glad that finally we got the internet to work for us.
Yeah, that was, and we practiced too. We practiced everybody, and
Yeah, we
so
did, and it still happened. So
yeah,
that's how life is.
right.
Lee, I think, is Equality Spud. Am I right? Hi, Diane. So let's go ahead. First of all, I just want to ask you straight away, what, tell us about your journey to finding yoga. Let's just do that. Let's start there. Nice and
Hey,
juicy.
my journey to finding yoga. So originally, I'm first generation in this country, but I was born and raised in LA. So like everybody in LA, I got really close to Hollywood, and so I did acting from when I was 18 years old to about 22 years old. I did
Wow.
some films and some commercials, some music videos. And as people do when they're in that industry, they have like these huge awakenings because a lot of this spirituality stuff is very knitted into Hollywood. And so I had a deep awakening, and I looked around and I was surrounded by more people than trees. And I found that there was something really crazy about that. And so I wanted out of that. So I moved up to Northern California, surrounded myself with trees. And then right away, I went into a degree for metaphysical sciences. I got a PhD in spiritual psychology to help with spiritual counseling.
Just really
And
quickly, will you explain to people what that is? Like, what is this
so,
metaphysical
yeah, so a
study?
spiritual psychology degree is like how Dr. Martin Luther King was a doctor, is the
Wow.
same way that I'm a doctor. So I am an ordained minister. I can marry people. I have my own, I can create my own church if I wanted to. But it's a spiritual degree. So it's not something that I went to a 4-year university to do. It's strictly spiritual speaking. So one of the topics in that course was yoga. And I studied Paramahansa Yogananda. I read Autobiography of a Yogi. It took me about 6 months to read.
Hmm.
And it's just something that really touched my soul. And I just kind of eased right into it. And that was it from there. The first day I got on my mat, I've never gotten off. So even through my
Wow.
2 pregnancies, I went as long as I could staying on my mat. So yeah, that's how
That's
I
so
got into it.
interesting that it was your degree that took you to yoga, your spirituality degree, instead of yoga taking you to a spirituality degree,
Right? Especially because I missed the whole boat in LA. This is what's so ironic about it.
right?
I missed the whole freaking boat. I moved out and then I found yoga and I thought, oh, how
So you
ironic.
didn't get to go to like the I can't even say his name, the autobiography of Yogi
Oh,
guy.
yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
went to
yeah,
his
his
hermitage. I did journey there in the middle of reading his book. I went there to go visit his ashram. I didn't do any yoga there or anything, but I just, saw his shawl that he wore and his writing pen. And I was like, he's still alive to me. I haven't finished the book yet. It was so
yeah.
bizarre. But yeah, I definitely, I think it's funny that I missed the yoga boat. And now I go to LA and, to Robert Sturman. And when Tiffany would teach out of Exhale in Venice, I drive there. And I take classes with Catherine. I drive there. So, it's still nice to go
Yeah.
visit.
Well, it's interesting because LA used to be like the mecca of modern yoga, for,
Yeah.
I don't know, like 15 years or so. And then everybody kind of now, because of the internet, I mean, the internet's been around forever, but like
Right, right.
that we can do virtual classes and people have kind of moved around and stuff. So, well,
Right.
it's still great that you can go back to yoga and you can see Robert. Robert is our good friend. Hi, Robert. And he is a phenomenal photographer and yogi. But
Hey,
like
Marcus, my
Tiffany's,
best friend from LA is on here. Hey, Marcus.
hey,
Hey. I never
Marcus.
see him on these things. I'm sorry. I just had to give a shout
No,
out
this
real
is
quick.
fantastic. Shout out anytime. Hi,
That's awesome.
Norman. Hi, everybody. So, yeah, so now you're up in Northern California, and tell us about that. Tell us about your adventures up there.
Oh man, my adventures. Yeah,
You've
it's
had some
been
adventures
it's been
for sure.
nonstop adventures for over a decade. Yeah, I moved up here and have been up here ever since. My friends from LA go, "When are you gonna move back?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Never." You know, it doesn't make
Wow.
any sense. But yeah, from just stabilizing, leaving a big city and going to really teeny tiny towns and the politics of the teeny
Yeah.
tiny towns and just making your way into the heart of a new city is really difficult to do. So it takes time. So I've been in this county for about 13 years now.
Wow.
And I'm barely starting to get taken seriously in the community as far as like, oh, she might know what she's talking about. You know, it's like
Right.
a mix
Like you're not
of
a
being here,
carpetbagger.
right? It's a mix of being here long enough and also being in my 30s now. People take you a little bit more seriously when you're not in your
Right.
20s. So it's a mix of the two there. But yeah, it's been nonstop from, I'm on my third yoga studio. I opened one and then I got pregnant, closed it. And then I opened a second, I got pregnant, closed it. And then this is my third one and I'm keeping it open. And it's been through 3 towns. And then, you know, of course, I'm the one that lost the house. So on top of that, lost my house to
Yeah, the one
fire
who
last
lost
year.
the house. Like, is that like that's your new moniker? I'm the one who
Right, the
lost the
one that lost
house.
the house.
Well, okay, what about that? So, how did you lose your house?
I know, right? I just showed up one
Mhm.
day and I was like, where did it
Where'd it
go?
go?
We had a huge, you know, what Northern California's had a lot of huge fires the last few years. It's nothing new for me to evacuate. I evacuate 2 or 3 times a year, every year for the last 4 or 5 years. So it wasn't anything new to me. I got really good at packing my non-negotiables, all my precious belongings. I got really good at packing that. Um, but aside from that, it still didn't really prepare me. I think the yoga practice really prepared me for it. But so I was up at my house at noon and I got a call from my chiropractor friend saying, hey, one of my doctor friends says that Berry Creek is going to catch on fire. And that was at 12 o'clock. And I packed up all of my stuff. And the fire was 25 miles away at the time,
Right.
25
So you're
miles
thinking
away.
it's 25 miles. It's like,
Yeah, usually with that kind of thing, yeah. But by that was at 12 o'clock, and by 1 o'clock in the morning, my house had burned down. So it just shows
oh,
you how much wind, how much pressure that fire was moving at lightning speed to get all the way to me from where it was at. So yeah, it's the most freeing thing. I mean, I don't recommend it, I guess, but if it
no.
happens to you, you know, embrace it because there's nothing to lose anymore, and so
Yeah.
everything you just have gratitude for it, which is what we practice in yoga, right? So a few of my students were kind of worried for me because they felt like I wasn't crying or I wasn't processing it in a way that everybody else was
Right, like you're in
processing it.
denial or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or like deer in a headlight. And meanwhile, my connective tissue was like,
Oh
you know,
my
like I don't
gosh.
mentally stress when my body takes it and just crumbles like a soda can in space. You know, so I
That's
really
a neat
felt it,
analogy.
right? From all sides, all sides. And yeah, it took me about a year easily to undo the kinks in my connective tissue from the fire. So it's just not
I
the same
mean,
as everybody else, but I was affected just in a different way.
well, I mean, you lost everything. Did you not?
Yes, I mean, I saved what I could because I had my kids with me.
Hmm.
So I packed my car as much as I could, like my belly cast,
Yes.
right? Like
Oh, no way.
yeah, I'm never gonna get pregnant again. So I
Yeah.
saved my belly cast. I saved Tiffany, shout out. I saved all of my materials from every teacher training I've taken with Tiffany, took all of that, my
Very
printer,
cool.
my computer, everything that for my business, pictures that were irreplaceable. I took that.
Documents.
Yeah, things like that. But that's all
Yeah.
I had room for because it was my boys. And then every
Yeah.
single article of Kira Grace clothing I owned, I packed.
Yeah. I was gonna
Yes.
say, look,
Yes.
the most important things,
The
right?
most
Like your
important.
children, your documents, and your Kira Grace clothing.
I left my birth certificate. I left my,
No, no. You
but they
didn't, did you?
reprinted that out.
No,
It's
yeah,
fine. They
yeah,
reprinted
okay.
it. Yeah.
I was gonna say that's kind of a nightmare, actually, and you think about it.
Yes, you know what's crazy is that day we finally got the alert at like 2:45. They're like, "Hey, get your stuff and get out." When you get that alert on your phone, you know it's no joke. Get out. And
Right.
so I got that alert and I got my stuff and I got out and I got to the bottom of the hill and I realized I left my purse in my garage with my driver's license, my credit cards,
No.
my social security, everything in there that would make this transition a lot more smoother. I left it. And one of my friends who lives about 10 minutes north of me on the mountains, I called her. I said, "Are you still there? Did you leave? Could you by any chance stop by my garage?" And because everything was unlocked, and she stopped
Yeah.
by. Her van is like a putt-putt van. It
Uh-huh.
barely made it up the hill. They got my purse and they met me at the parking lot down the hill. And I was like,
Oh,
"Oh my goodness,
thank
thank
goodness
you."
for friends, right?
Yes.
Oh
Oh my
gosh,
goodness.
that worked
Yeah.
out. I mean, it's nice that we can see the positive things that happen, like that
Yes.
that you're smiling, that you can laugh about it now, but at the time you were like a can in space,
Oh
in outer
yeah,
space, you know. And yeah,
definitely.
so how did you work that out of your tissues? That's a lot to process.
Yes, it is. Well, lucky for me, I took Tiffany's myofascial module a few years ago,
Yeah.
and I just kept applying all of that wherever I felt the tension. I would go in there and just allow myself to get feedback. What am I storing in there? What am I guarding and protecting in there?
Mm.
And just kind of take it there little by little, have different conversations with different parts of my body about different things, and just allow that conversation to take place. You get on some spots, things muscle spasm, and the way I like to look at connective tissue release is there's a conversation happening in my nervous system,
Hmm.
and I don't know what that conversation is about, but I don't want to interrupt. It's like someone speaking in
Right.
Japanese. And even though I don't understand, I'm not going to interrupt and be rude. You know, there's
Right.
cultural differences here that I want to show respect. So yeah, that's how I went about it. So a lot of, even now still, I mean, connective tissue release is something that you're going to do every day. It's a non-negotiable for the rest of your life. So every day
Mm.
I do a minimum of 30 minutes of myo easily.
Oh
But
gosh, I should do
yes,
that.
it's non-negotiable for sure. And after the fire was like easily like an hour, 20 minutes of myo work. Yeah.
And you know what? I think something that's important to mention that people don't know. This happened during the pandemic. You know, it's
Yes.
just like, can it be worse?
Right. Let's see.
No.
Yeah. The universe is like, hold my beer.
Yeah, here you go.
Right.
Oh my gosh, it's so crazy that it was during the pandemic. So you didn't have the same resources, you were cut off. I mean, luckily you were part of your community. How did that help during this time?
Oh my gosh, my community really came through. That's what made me cry. I
Aw.
just, I was so touched by, mentors that I see as mentors that I just, they're people that are not really in my life like that. But
Hmm.
they just showed up, the Tiffany's, the Rachel Lands, the Robert Sturmans, they showed up. And I was just so humbled that they even wanted to do that. And then everybody in this community got together
Hmm.
and donated whatever they could donate. I had boxes of clothes shipped over from um, Val sent me a box of clothes.
Uh-huh.
Michelle sent me a box of clothes. And I mean, like, amazing stuff. One of
Wow.
my good
Yeah.
friends, Rebecca from Yoga Medicine, sent me boxes of clothes. So people from literally all across the planet and right here in my community just funneled whatever I needed, from food to resources to furniture. I had students that donated beds to me with mattresses and
That is nice. Yeah, the
comforters.
mattress part, that's important.
Yeah,
Here's a bed.
they can
Sorry,
donate a
there's no
bed, but not
mattress.
a mattress. Like, oh, I was very lucky. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was
That's
amazing how people
exceptional.
came through. Yeah.
How did your kids handle it? Or I should say, how did yoga help you to with your kids dealing with this very dramatic thing? Because Michelle and I were talking yesterday for a few minutes. I'm sorry, Michelle. Sorry, Leslie.
Okay.
Saw
Freudian
somebody
slip.
else
That's
show
a
up
good
instead
Freudian
of
slip.
there. We go. No, Leslie and I were talking yesterday, and yeah, that's so funny. Like, there's an even a bigger. I guess I'm not supposed to talk about that particular thing. It's just like, whoop,
Oh,
darn,
it just
we're supposed to move
right.
on, right?
That
Yeah.
happens.
So that I mean, you have these children. Oh, I do remember it now.
Okay.
That you said you grew up that you had nothing, and so for you, when you lost everything, it wasn't like coming from this place of privilege and abundance and then losing everything. It's not like Schitt's Creek,
Right. No, no.
where
Yeah, exactly. The
they're like
opposite.
bazillionaires and then they come into this small town and they have nothing. I mean, you
Yeah.
knew that because you were able to grow up and become the person that you are, that you were able to handle this thing, right? Plus, you were equipped with like the knowledge from yoga and the spirituality and your
Yeah.
community there. So, how did you help your children through this time?
That's an awesome question. What's funny is, so in class, I'm known to give my cues that I give in class are things that you can relate to. They're very relatable
Mm-hmm.
cues. So I won't say like open your heart because I don't really know what that
Right.
means,
Like,
you
what
know?
does that even mean?
Right. So I bring cues that are like, yeah, exactly. That's what I do. Like cut me open and open it up. So one of the cues that I give, and it's from growing up. So I was born in this country, but I would get shipped off to Mexico for summers and for like 4 months in a row, especially before I turned of school age. And it was not a big deal. You see dead bodies all over the place, and you just
Wow.
walk around the dead body. And
Oh
so,
my gosh. Human
so
bodies?
yes.
This is
So
like a
I'll give a
Halloween
cue
episode.
sometimes. I'll give a cue sometimes in class, avoid sharp shooting pain. Just go around it like a dead body, and people will be like,
Ah,
oh,
what do you even mean? Yeah, I feel triggered.
yeah, exactly. And I'm like, for me, it's like just something I grew up with. Like, oh no, I'm so
Yeah,
sorry. So now it's like a joking cue. I don't really use it as like an
right.
actual cue anymore. But it's really sweet to see how my boys process trauma and stress because every year we get evacuated, right? So every
Yeah.
year they know that we're going to get all of our stuff and put it into the vehicle. But this time made it different because it actually went up.
Mm.
And my oldest was really concerned on the way down. He was like, okay, we need to make sure that we leave so that we don't get taken out by the fire. And I told him, oh, bud, don't worry. So you see that post lady right there? She's still delivering mail. So if
Yeah,
she's still delivering mail, we got some time.
yeah,
I'm not going
yeah.
to let anything happen to you. And since then, any kind of smell of smoke triggers me if it's around my house.
Of
And
course.
I've packed up all of my stuff into my vehicle and driven to where I have phone service, felt safe and gone, oh, okay, that was literally absolutely nothing. Someone burning like a pile of leaves or something. And so Preston is my oldest is the same way when he smells smoke. He's like, is there a fire? Is there a fire
Yeah.
nearby? And make sure you tell dad, make sure he gets out. It's it's kind of bittersweet because the silver linings is they're so innocent. They're like, okay, make sure to bring my Legos because these are my
Ah,
non-negotiables, and everything else doesn't
right.
matter. And so yeah, they're like that coin of joy and suffering, and they're the coin itself. And I think that's just something that we practice as yogis to get to, and hopefully they
Yeah.
just never leave that aspect of being in between the two, joy and suffering.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, they're so fortunate to have you, honestly. And I'm
Oh,
I'm just so glad that your community rallied for you, that you had a place to land and
thank you. Me
that you're
too.
able to recover now and keep moving forward. And I just want to give you big kudos, big shout out that it's during this time, right? And everybody's sending the love. Absolutely. It's incredible. And that
Thank
you
you
are even
guys.
now, you keep teaching, and you've got a teacher training that's going to be coming up in February,
Yeah.
and your students are so lucky to have you. It's too bad that it's not an immersion so that people could come into town and be there and do it, but
Right.
maybe someday, right?
Yeah, in the
You got to
future for
encourage her.
sure.
If you want that, you've got to let her know, so maybe it can
Yeah, yeah.
happen someday.
Yeah, definitely. I'm working on doing a retreat or something in Costa Rica.
Oh,
So look out in the next
yes.
year for a retreat for sure.
Oh man, I'll go. I'll
Yeah,
come.
hey, ooh, good
So
times.
what I would love now is that, you were talking about some of the experiences that you've had with students in your classes.
Oh
Would you be
yeah.
willing to share some of these extraordinary experiences?
Yeah, definitely. One of my favorites, because everything I teach is simple, but it doesn't mean that it's easy. Like
Mm-hmm.
physical therapy, it's about doing it, or like
Yeah,
meditation, right? Catchword is meditation. Like, so it's
right.
always these little catchphrases. But I have a student who's moved to Indiana since then, but he was 80 and he had horrendous back pain. So he was diagnosed with MS. But the
Mm.
interesting thing is he only had one lesion and it never grew past the one lesion. It always stayed the one. He had actually an accident and that's what created the lesion. But sometimes superficially they'll look at something and we're just going to superficially label this MS and that's what it is. But
Right,
I don't really think it was heavy duty
right.
MS with the one lesion. It's very rare in MS for that to happen. So anyways, he had MS and horrendous back pain. One of his legs, he just dragged it as he walked. And if
Oh,
you've ever
how
bruised a
awful.
nerve, it is the
Hmm.
most horrendous pain you've ever felt in your life. I've had the privilege of bruising a nerve. It
Lucky
feels like
girl.
if you've been into the Pacific Ocean, like in Northern California, where you get into the water and within a second your bones freeze.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
what it feels like when you bruise a nerve. When you just move just your finger just a little bit like that, it just radiates the most
Mm.
it's just ridiculous. And so I felt for him, and he came in and we did a lot of myo work, did myo work on his back. And so to go to sleep every night, he had to take Vicodin. He was taking Vicodin for 10
Oh,
years already, just so he
wow.
can not be in pain and go to sleep, which, you know, I don't blame him. And then on Sundays, he would still play tennis at 80 years old, still
Oh
playing
my
tennis.
gosh.
So
Wow.
I know. So he would take a Vicodin, as you can imagine, so he could actually play tennis. It still hurt, but he's going to play it.
He's a
My
true
goodness.
athlete. They just take the
Right?
medicine and go out and do the thing. Yes.
For sure. And so he came into my class and we worked on him 2 months. After 2 months of coming 3 days a week doing myofascial work, he was no longer taking Vicodin to go to sleep.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah, that's really huge. That's a big deal. I lost my light over here. I don't know what happened. Yeah, that's a really big deal, especially for him because he was just amazed. And then after a while, thank you. After a while, he wasn't able, he didn't have to take Vicodin before he played tennis either.
Wow.
I know. And then the pandemic
Wow.
happened and I had to close the studio down for 3 months.
Yeah.
And, you
Yeah.
know, he came back after. I said, how's the back doing? He's like, well, you know, I've been away for a
Man.
while. And that's why I say that all of this is going to be, it's forever. You don't do
Hmm.
like 6 months of myofascial work and then, okay, now I'm done. It's like a six pack. I've
Right.
got it. Now I don't have to do crunches anymore.
Hmm.
It's something that you have to work at every day. But the changes that I see in people, you know, is just, it's amazing. It's literally, what's your definition of a miracle? Because it's happening every day
Right.
in my studio, you know?
Oh, that's so great. I love that it's happening every day in your
Yeah.
studio.
Oh,
And
thank
you know,
you.
you got to be willing to put in the work. I think people want like some easy, like a pill you can take, kind of like that's why like weight loss fads are so popular. Like you can just do something for 30 days or like that suddenly it's going to be fixed. And yoga and myofascial work and any kind of work, actually, even working on your talents and your abilities, it's
Yeah.
something that you've constantly got to work at in order
Yes.
to maintain a certain level. So if like you don't want to feel the pain, then you got to do the work.
Right?
And it's interesting
Definitely.
too because usually like I had a friend that was on a few weeks ago and she is currently fighting cancer and she was talking about that when she was in chemotherapy last spring that the weeks where she was able to exercise even though she felt awful when she exercised she said her tumor shrunk a lot more during that week when she would go back. And you know, we know as yoga teachers, we understand this and we know, but it's like usually when you feel garbagey, you got to find a way to get on the mat. You got to find a way, of course, being smart, not like taking the Vicodin and going out, you
Right.
know, I mean, right? Like,
Important to note that. Yes.
yes, like that's not how it works. I mean, you've got to be mindful and respectful of your body for sure.
Yes.
But sometimes you just, like when we're really tired, the last thing you want to do is go exercise, but it's like, well, you know, you'll feel less tired if you
Right.
exercise.
And I think it also speaks to the quality of exercise,
I agree.
right? Like what quality of exercise am I setting up myself up to meet the challenges of my day or am I
Mm-hmm.
depleting my resources?
100%. Like, is hit,
Right?
I'm going to do an hour of hit, and like, how is that going to
Right?
affect everything else that comes after it?
Yeah. Health
You
is
know,
especially fitness exercise is a moving target. And I think
that
people don't
is
really get
so
that.
funny because this morning I posted something on my story, and it's on Kira Grace's story too. That at first I wrote balance as a moving target, and then I changed it because I didn't want people to be triggered.
Oh,
And it's so funny that you just said that.
dang it. I said it. Hopefully people
No,
don't get
it's
triggered.
great. It's great. You should put it on your story now. Balance is a moving target.
Wait.
No, and I think like, you know, if you look at your story and you look at like the trajectory of your life, you can see how that has happened, you know, that you find the balance and how one thing prepares you for the next thing, prepares you for the next thing. If you
Yeah.
are open and willing to learn and pay attention.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Will you share
Definitely.
another story with us?
Sure. So another one of my students, actually, this is a new one because it's a very interesting case. There's three sides to him. He served in the Navy and had a
Mm-hmm.
accident on the ship. They're known to cut sharp right and cut sharp left.
Right.
And so he blew out his shoulder when they cut a sharp right. He bulldozed onto the left side and tore his labrum.
Ooh.
Uh, and then something else happened from there that he needed to be hospitalized and put under like significant pain meds. And
Mm-hmm.
he slipped into a coma from the medication.
Oh my gosh.
And then they got him out of the coma. And now every time he eats, it could be organic or not organic. anything as small as a peanut, he eats it and he falls asleep. It just drops his blood pressure all the way down.
Oh, that is so interesting.
Yes, which actually, knowing him has triggered me to start looking up contraindications with food. And turns out, yeah, there's some medications that if you eat avocado or bananas, like you did, like
Oh
your heart rate is
no.
dropping, your blood pressure is going to drop, and that could actually kill you. And this is something that people don't talk about. We talk about mixing herbal remedies, contraindications, or other medications with other medications, but we don't
Or
talk about how
alcohol, or
food,
yeah.
yeah, exactly. But we don't talk about how food does it. It's almost like
Because
the little
food is medicine.
conspiracy. Yeah, exactly. And it's that little conspiracy heart in me that's like, it's a big conversation happening in the world right now about immune systems and health and how we eat and how that affects our health. And I just think it's so funny that here comes a guy that's directly affected by that. But yet, we're not able to talk about it in mainstream media. I think it's just the
Oh,
irony of it is so rich. And so he came in because he was having tremendous pain in his back. And anytime a male comes in and says, I'm in so much pain, you can have an idea of how much pain they're really in,
right.
because they wait until they're like 1,000% pain before they say
Mm.
anything to anybody. And so I told him if he came back, I could do some deep tissue work. I could work with his connective tissue with trigger points. He was standing on a concrete floor for a few hours, and he has S-curve scoliosis from
Uh-huh.
that torn labrum. It
Oh
turned
wow.
into S-curve over the years. And so he came in with, obliterating back pain, and I worked on him for 90 minutes. I just worked on his multifidi up and down the spine, did some levator scapula, some pecs, some QL, some deep piriformis go-go cues, that kind of thing. And after 90
For those
minutes,
of you who don't know, that's a lot of back stuff.
yeah,
It's all
yeah,
the
those
muscles in your
guys will
back,
cause trouble, man. That's not the
little and
erectors. It's
big.
all those deeper guys that cause problems. So after 90 minutes, he was able to go back to his original pain threshold, which is the one that he is used to, that he can live off of as his base note. And after 2 weeks of not being able to do anything because of crippling pain, he was able to go work out and do some writing,
Oh
write some
my
poem. He wrote me a poem about
gosh.
his session. That's never been done to me before. A poem about,
Wow, no one's ever written
yeah,
me a poem.
because he had to learn his ABCs all over again. He didn't know who he was. He lost his memory. He doesn't know who his wife is. He doesn't know to this day how they met. So every day she has to get him to fall in love with her. It's like
Oh,
51st
that's like a
dates kind of.
movie. That's
It
like,
is. It's crazy. I mean, I'm like,
90 or 50 first dates or whatever that
yeah,
is.
literally, yes. I'm just so grateful that he came into my space, because it expands my data, expands
Yeah.
what I work with out there. And he's one of a kind. I've never come across anything like that before. And that
Wow.
we can still have an effect. It just speaks to that the problems are happening in the connective tissue. And the
Mm-hmm.
connective tissue is restricting things, which restrict the nerves. And the nerves
Mm-hmm.
control and regulate every function in the body. And
Mm-hmm.
so when we look at it that simply, and we stop isolating muscles, but instead
Mm-hmm.
looking at like, hey, this muscle is caught. It doesn't need to be strengthened or lengthened. It probably needs to be hydrated, but really it's stuck
Yeah.
through, weaving through the connective tissue. And if we can work on that and get it to open up, then a lot of our
Right.
limitations, like literally in 10 minutes, just kind of go away.
Yeah, we call it Davy's Law, don't we? In personal training, they call it Davy's Law, that your connective tissue actually is going to heal along the scarring. And
Ah.
so, I would love if you could share, do you have any workshops or any YouTube videos that we could offer to our audience
Oh my
that,
God. I do have them.
um,
I just haven't uploaded on my own. Like everybody else did during the pandemic, they were recording
yeah,
classes to go
yeah,
online. And then it got so many people were there that I was like, well, how am I going to stand
I
out
know.
in the middle of all that? So I have these videos that I haven't
Hmm.
uploaded
Okay,
on
that's
Just
like a
Smile
whole
Fascia
thing right
Release.
there. We could have a whole conversation about that right now because, you know, I mean, and I think all of us, I think we can all relate to this. Yes? What do you think,
Yes.
everybody? I think we can relate to that. But it's not about, yes, there is this whole thing about standing out, but you're needed. Um, and exactly who you are is needed by very specific people, and that
Totally.
they're, like like I'm not like super shiny, and yeah, I love this whole combo. Yay, spa
Yeah.
benefits. But like, I think about that, and I think, well, who's going to want to listen to me when they can go to this person? But the thing is, there are people who are going to want to. And like right now, I think that people would love to see your videos. And so what I want to encourage you, and I'm going to ask you to throw your backpack over the wall, military term,
Yeah.
um, is to, when you post those, will you actually put a link on your link tree or something so that we at Cura Grace can highlight that so that our community here
Definitely.
is able
Yeah.
to go and enjoy that. Because yes, I know that we have Tiffany Crookshanks, but we want Leslie too. You know, it doesn't take away, like, and I'm sure Tiffany would say, yes, yes, but Leslie's amazing, you know, and just like their teachers are going to resonate with different people,
Yeah, totally.
it kind of it comes along with this too. So
Yeah.
I just want to come on now, girl. You know this. You're the teacher. Sometimes we need to hear it though, and sometimes we need to hear it from our students. Yeah, remember that you endured a freaking fire. She didn't say freaking, but that's exactly what I was thinking. I
Thank
was
you.
thinking you were in a
Thank you,
fire. I
Spa
think
Becky.
you had things to do that were a little bit more intense than those of us thinking, and where should I put my ring light
Right.
now? like where am I going to sleep? Where am I
Right,
going
right.
to, yeah,
Where am I going to
yeah,
live in the future? Because nobody else,
yes,
everybody's
because
house is burned up. So people who are burned out, there's no houses for them either. It's
the girl
crazy.
who lost her house, like looking for the house, but
Oh man.
no, I think like I have to also just speak to this that you have such a grounded energy.
Oh, thank
You have such a
you.
grounded energy, and I think that must really help you, have helped you and your students and your family, but especially you. I'm doing
Yeah.
this mudra, you know, like Shiva Lingam.
Yeah, yeah.
Like what I was thinking of Shiva Lingam, but that during this difficult time. So I just wanted to take a moment and just give you that light. Ooh,
Thank you.
that not only are you a very fun and insightful and very knowledgeable woman, but you
Oh,
have
thank
such
you.
a grounded energy that I think makes people feel comfortable and frankly trust you,
Awesome.
trust you even more. So there you go. So our time has gone so fast. I feel like we could talk and talk and talk, right? Like yesterday, like, oh, I think we can come up with maybe the
I
song, but
know, I
it just
know.
goes.
Yeah.
So for just so that I can put this out there and give you some time to answer the question, I ask all of our warrior ambassadors, what does it mean to be a warrior to you? What does that mean?
Warrior to me is getting back in touch with my genetics, basically, just going back to my roots and who that is and who that feels like, and just stay connected with earth and the animals. And
Mm,
yeah, warrior for me is just staying in tune with the flow of what God is. And
mm.
when I'm driving through town and for some reason I'm getting not getting those parking spots, I'm hitting every red light. That lets me know, hey, I'm not in the flow of
Right.
what the universe is right now. And that to me is
Ah.
what a warrior is, a fearless, wide open warrior heart. Not because
Mm-hmm.
it's easy, because the world makes you close your heart so much, but because I can. I have free will and I can, and so therefore I will.
Wow. And that requires a lot of bravery. And,
Definitely.
having that open heart. And, I just want to take that and circle it all the way back to the beginning of your yoga journey that you have had an open heart because especially by your definition, that being in LA and looking around and seeing that there were a lot more people than trees, right? And needing that connection to the earth,
Yeah,
like you
yeah.
mentioned, and being able to be connected to the earth. And you did it. You gave it all up and you moved out into the middle of nowhere with no connections. And that's kind of a theme, I think, for you, like starting
Yeah.
over, being able to
Right.
rise from the ashes. I think you're like a phoenix.
Hey, oh my
So,
goodness. Here we go. Thank you for that
right?
affirmation.
Here's my wings. Ooh, except for like, I don't have enough space to show them, but I think
Right.
it's amazing.
Thank
So thank you
you.
so much for your time.
Yeah.
I, I just want to say to the community that again, her classes are on the Cure Grace YouTube channel. You can just go there, follow us if you're not already following us, and you can see some of her past classes. But you've been hearing about myofascial release, and this Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, Leslie will be leading a class. You can sign up for it on the Cure Grace website under Community. Click there, Rising Together, and you can sign up. Do you want to tell us about your class really quickly?
Yeah, so it's gonna be a nerve flossing class, flossing the nerves of the
Nerve
brachial
flossing.
plexus.
Tell
Yeah, I
people what
know,
that
like
means because it's like,
what a thing, right?
yeah.
So yeah, so what happens is if you picture a kitchen sponge that's been out of the water for like 2 weeks, and it gets really small and
Hmm.
really dry, you can even like bend it in half and like snap it in half.
Yeah.
So if you look at those holes, the holes that were, like this are now teeny tiny because there's no
Yeah.
water in the sponge. And so your nerves and your blood vessels flow through that teeny tiny hole. And so what happens is the nerves are supposed to glide like this, but when the
Hmm.
sponge shrinks, it suffocates it and then it moves as one unit.
Yikes. Uh-huh.
And what we're trying to do is free up those nerves so that they glide again through the holes that they're supposed to glide through, which leaves us feeling more range of motion, more mobility, more hydrated, less pain, stronger, all of these
Ah,
awesome things.
I'm signed up. Well, I'll be there because I'll be hosting
Yay!
it, but I'll be
Yeah,
doing it.
yeah.
What do we need to have? What tools should we bring?
Bring a blanket and a block, always a blanket and a block, and then have a myo ball,
Got it.
tennis ball,
So
or
if you
squishy
don't
tee
have a
ball.
myo ball, you can just use like what, like a racket ball
A
or
squishy tee ball is what I recommend.
okay.
If you go to the baseball section at the store, they'll have a squishy tee ball where it's a baseball wrapped in squishiness.
Oh,
So, and
that
that's the
sounds good.
closest you're gonna get to the recovery rounds from Rad. That's the
Hmm.
closest you're gonna get to that texture.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
luckily I have some balls, so that'll be good.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
I will be there and I'll be ready. But everybody, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Leslie,
Thanks for
it's been
joining.
such a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you this weekend and
Thanks for
hopefully
having me.
more in the future.
Yeah,
All
for
right,
sure.
everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.